Hello, in this video, I'm going to give a very broad and brief overview of the ILMT dashboard. And I'm going to start out by sharing my test environment here. And I'm just going to give a very basic overview of these three main categories, particularly on the top of the ILMT dashboard. Now, if you see a bar like this on the right-hand side, you can see this yellow bar, then that means that there is an issue. If you don't see any bars, then that's great. It means everything is working as expected. All the scans are working, things are reporting in, and no reason to worry. Now, if you do see a bar, which if you have a large environment, you will almost always see one thing or another that's gone wrong. Then you can click over the category, and it will essentially give you the more specific list of servers that are having that issue. So I only have one, so I'm just going to click on this yellow Novia manager data here, and it will show me the server that doesn't have Novia manager data. So all of these servers that report into ILMT are essentially assumed to have a hypervisor, and you can add those up here in management and via manager. Again, I'm not going to go into how to remediate everything here. This is just a broad overview. So I'm going to go back to the main page here. And then let's just take a look at these categories. So deployment health typically has to do in the left-hand corner here, typically has to do with the general connectivity to BigFix. So if a BigFix agent has been installed and things were reporting in, but then for whatever reason, someone turned a server off or someone changed a hostname or IP address, then that's going to show up under delayed data upload. And you can see if the computer hasn't been seen essentially in the last 10 days, then it's gonna show up here, and you can select this, as I mentioned earlier, and get the list of servers and take action from there. Generally done through BigFix. The other errors here are not as common and/or are more specific, such as low disk space, which is very self-explanatory. And so, but again, the most common one that you're going to see is delayed data upload. Now let's move on to the middle category of software scan health. So there are two scans, remember, there's the capacity or hardware scan and there's the software scan. The software scan is supposed to run generally at least once a week. And if it does not run, or in other words, if it fails, then you'll see that show up here. Or if it ran, but it wasn't uploaded, then you'll see other issues there as well. So this general category is for software scan health. The most common ones probably being failed scan and missing scan. Sometimes scan not uploaded will happen as well. And you'll see that essentially it says the scan was complete on the server, but for whatever reason, it wasn't able to make it up to the BigFix server. Moving on to the right-hand side, we see the capacity scan health. So think of capacity as being the same as hardware. So again, the two scans, software and hardware. This scan is supposed to run every 30 minutes, and so you'll often see errors here a little bit more quickly than the software scan because, as I mentioned, the software scan only runs once per week typically. So that being said, the no scan data is something that you'll see if, as we hover over it, it will tell us hardware inventory data from the capacity scan is missing. In other words, the scan didn't work. The no host scan data is a little bit less common, so I'm not going to go over that at all. The Novia manager data is essentially, as I mentioned before, saying that it only has the server information and it doesn't have the underlying information about the hypervisor. So it's assumed to have a hypervisor. If it's not, there's a fixlet on BigFix. If you have something running on AWS or Azure that you can specify as the server as being in the cloud and not having a hypervisor. But otherwise, it's assumed to. And until you add it, which can be done management here on the top left and then via managers. If you don't add it, then that will show up automatically. Outdated scan is another common one you'll see. And this is saying the last successful capacity scan was run more than 12 hours ago. Now, it's important to note that, let's say you have a server offline and you see it on the dashboard. So you go and you turn it on or whatever, and everything seems to be working. You go back to the ILMT dashboard page and you don't see any changes. Everything looks the same. Well, the reason for that is because the ILMT dashboard is not a live real-time dashboard. It's something that is configured to update only once per day, typically around midnight. So if you go up to data imports here in the management tab, you can see when it's selected to run, and it says imports per day. The default is 1. So if you make a change and you want to see if that change has worked, then you can just do import now, and this will just do a one-time import. And then once that is complete, you can go back to the dashboard and hopefully see any changes. The bottom part here is a little bit easier to understand with the PVU subcapacity and VPC subcapacity. The software classification is where you can essentially clarify what software IBM has classified and say if it's correct or incorrect. Every software that IBM discovers is going to show up under pending until you confirm it. So the default is pending. And again, this is a broad overview. There's a lot more features and things to talk about, but essentially I'll just highlight that these bar graphs up here at the top are to show errors, not successes. Although I guess if you could say if there's no bars, then that means everything is working great. And then just up here, you have your navigation towards users. You can add users with roles. And then you shouldn't need to mess with most of these things. Again, most of the remediation that you see, if you see an error here on the dashboard, it's going to be done through BigFix and the associated scans and servers. There's not a lot of action you're going to take directly here. This is just to give you an easy way to see what is working and not working, especially concerning the hardware and software scans. So I hope this video was helpful, and in future ones, I'll try to go over how to remediate some of these scan issues. Thanks.